Welcome to the Pest Empire Builder podcast. On today's episode, we're talking about growing your business and creating a phenomenal company culture. Reminds me, there was a guy on our team that he was at an inspection. He was actually on site at a client's house, and he got a phone call from his wife, and she's like, "I've called the ambulance. I'm going to the hospital. Something's very wrong." And so he literally sent a text message to our little group chat thing of his team, and said, "My wife's going to the hospital. I'm leaving this inspection to go grab it." People immediately texted in, and what happened was really incredible. I didn't hear about it until the next day. But what happened that day was all my guys, they rallied together. They went and make sure they got his projects, his schedule taken care of that day. They organized with everybody involved, clients, all the different people involved in the process. And on top of that, some of our other employees' wives all rallied together and went over. One of them rallied together, went over, took dinner to the family and the kids that were there with grandma. And like, it went so far beyond just work. It went into their personal life. And then they were all rallying, "Hey, how can we help? What can we do? Where's she at?" And then I was just so proud of my entire team that in just a quick moment. And that's because the company culture, we're all in this together and we're all building something together. And, it's really cool to see when there's moments like that where it's not just the bad. I got stories on the bad too, but in the stories of the good that happens when you have a good company culture.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, we've stories of the bad. It really is interesting how you can have somebody you think is a good apple and they're good for your organization. And just by listening to those people that are saying, I don't know, and you get those red flags and you try to think, man, I don't know. But when you really listen, they were right all along. We've had that happen before. We've had bad apples that have come in and we're like, oh, we've got all this hope. We've invested. We've done all this stuff. And if from day one we would have just listened, it would have just been, we learned that lesson. We learned that lesson quick. And now it's definitely of, hey, what's your input?
Absolutely. And, do you have a good process on onboarding new employees? How do you do that within your company?
Yeah. So, it really starts from the way we do our interviews. It's never just one person involved in the interview. We like to have several levels of management involved, and not just management sometimes. We have lead technicians that, my saying is train your replacement. I don't care what level you're in, you should always have your replacement ready. So we'll have individuals that may not have been experienced in interviews, give them some guidelines, give them a little bit of coaching of here's what you need to do and how to perform it, and then let them do an interview. And then what that does is it creates a relationship with those individuals. So when we bring somebody on board, they go through the process of all the technicalities, making sure everything is very well documented. Expectations are communicated very clearly. And then they already have that relationship with the individual who's going to end up performing their training. And now all those questions are answered. So really, the process itself is detailed from a technical standpoint, but when you look at the actual application of it, I rely on my team to commit to making sure it's done properly. Everything else after that's just documentation. Hey, he knows how to do a pest control service. Great. Let's check that off the box. He understands our pricing. Great. Check that off the box. What I'm interested in is how does he communicate? How does he represent the company? That's the stuff that I can't really document very well that you can put, I know a couple people in the industry that are in PEB that do a phenomenal job of documentation. They really have it quantified down to literally level. And that's great. And I love that theory. But for me, at least, that's too much work. I've got a lot of things going on. So I count on my people to go through and build those relationships. And that onboarding process is constant support. Where are you at? What do you need? How can I help you? Where are you at with stuff? And that's what our onboarding is, I can go through the technical aspects of it, but really that's easy. I can download that PDF and send it to anybody. The harder part is how does that person communicate?
Yeah. And you mentioned PEB, which is, our Pest Empire Builder community, and which is a phenomenal mastermind group. And if you are in the pest industry and you are not part of a mastermind group, I'm telling you, you need to be part of one. And shameless plug, PEB is the best. The way that they build their systems, the way that they integrate, the way they build community, the community building side of PEB is unbelievable. And so it gets you tied in with top performing companies. And what I love about mastermind groups, especially this one, is you have people that are a few steps in front of you. I mean, you have people lots of steps in front of you, but you have people a few steps in front of you. You have people a few steps behind you. And it's amazing when you're part of this group because you're learning from people who are a few steps ahead of you and like, oh, watch out for this landmine, watch out for this pitfall. I made this mistake. You don't make that mistake. And then also in the middle of that, you're in a place where you get to help people a few steps behind you. And so you're, hey, watch out for this, watch out for this. Oh, when I went through that, here's how I overcame that obstacle. And the group chats that are on the online group chat meetings that are happening every week, all the different things that are happening inside of the community, it's something that is just a great encouragement. Every business owner, whatever industry that you're in, you got to find a great mastermind group to be part of it because it accelerates your growth. And then those days and moments, I'm sure you've had them, those days and moments where you're like, I'm going insane. Am I the only person that deals with this garbage? I'm going absolutely nuts. Like, why can't I figure this out? And then you get on a call and you like vent that and like everybody in the room starts laughing like, oh yeah, I do that. Yep. I battle the same things, and it just is encouraging for your soul. And as a leader of an organization, whether you're a manager, whether you're a leadership position, whether you're the owner, it can be very lonely to be in a leadership role. And it can really feel isolating sometimes, which is why getting in a community like this is just so critical. How have you enjoyed being part of you're a coach inside of the Pest Empire Builder. So yeah, how have you enjoyed the program or the community so far?
I mean, it's been phenomenal. I mean, as a coach, honestly, I've probably taken more out of it than I've given. I mean, just out of full transparency. It just, like you're saying, when you're an owner and you get on one of those calls and, as a coach, when we're sitting there and we're talking about a challenge that we're going through, it's not just about people. Yes, people are going through the same thing, but what's great about it is you all start talking it through. And, you can get 5 or 6 different point of views from something you thought you knew the answer to. And then you look at, you're like, wow, that makes complete sense. And then you start to get the detailed information of how to implement those types of actions and those systems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And the willingness of individuals to share is just amazing. And so for somebody to say, hey, let me send you my process on that. And you look at, wow, this really can fit my organization. It has saved me hours and hours of research and trying to think and failing and then trying to succeed and redo a process when somebody's already done that. And it's like, this is in pest control, there is a lot of people and companies, individuals, organizations that have done that before. And in PEV, and we have a lot of those people in PEV. So when we go through and we talk about it, it's like, oh no, let me tell you how I've overcome this. And you look at it, you're like, I can really make that work. It's phenomenal. So as a coach, it's been instrumental in our success.
Yeah. And as you're scaling, like one of the things that I've had to wrestle through just recently in my own business is the org chart of my business, right? The organizational chart of what got us here isn't going to get us there. And so the systems and processes that got you from point A to point B aren't going to get you from point B to point C. And then, and that's just the reality of scaling. Right. And so here I am, I got an org chart in my company. Well, I'm like, okay, I got this thing set up. Well, here we are, we're blown past it. And now we have a lot of pain points in the company because we're outgrowing our structure. And so it can't hold everything that's happening. So now sitting in a mastermind group, you're able to go, I'm struggling with this. And people go, oh, no. If you change your org chart and do this and this and this, and you divide the duties this way, and people tell you this is what I found the most efficiencies at, right? And so now I've got people emailing me, this is literally what's going on in my life. I have people in my mastermind group emailing me org charts of their companies. Here's how I set mine up. Here's how I set mine up. Here's the job descriptions already done for these positions in my org chart. When you're working on this, if you divide it this way, make sure that you have accountability structures between this and this and this and this. And so now you're shifting responsibilities. You're shifting your org chart. You're shifting your duties and your accountability stuff. And how am I going to learn that any other way? Trial and error. And it's going to cost me a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of heartache. And being part of a community just like elevates things so stinking fast. And if you're growing a business, man, I'm telling you, you got to be part of Pest Empire Builder. It is absolutely going to revolutionize it. It gives you camaraderie, it gives you community, and it gives you strategy and tools, and it gives you a mindset to be able to tackle the things that you want to be tackling. We all have vision for our life, man. And sometimes it's just having that little extra person go, hey, check this out. And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah. And so like, even like what you were saying with that organizational chart, what's great about it is, back to what we were talking about building things with PEB, you start bringing your team in on that. And it's not just for owners. I mean, we have service or directors, we have service leaders, we've got operations managers that come in. So you get to hear it from all sides. And so we don't just limit it and say, hey, we're only going to have owners on your, just like what we talked about earlier, an owner's vision is limited, right? So when you start bringing in individuals from your organization and other people that are in the trenches that are actually working this stuff, it becomes a really awesome thing.
Oh, absolutely. And so, as an owner, I know, like as an owner of my business, I know where I'm sitting, right, in my perspective and what I'm looking at. My operations director is thinking about things from a much different angle. She's looking at my vision and going, how am I going to implement this in operational strategy, right? And so the operations people get together in subgroups inside of these masterminds. And first of all, they're like, oh, you wouldn't believe the guy I'm working for right now, and they get to like a little bit of a bitch fest, they're like, yeah, he's a good dude, but and they all laugh and like, oh my God, we work for the same people. Like we all work for the same guy, and then, and then they go, yeah, okay, well, here's how I handle my boss. Here's how I handle my owner. Here's the phrasing I use to help communicate. And all of a sudden these guys find camaraderie. Now they're working together and they're like, hey, I found this works best in this area, You have a bunch of operations people talking about operation stuff together. And then you end up with a bunch of field people talking about field stuff together. And you got leaders and you've got management and you've got all the different teams. And then you break them into these subgroups like we have inside these masterminds. And I'm telling you, like, you don't elevate just you elevate your entire team. And it's, I'm telling you, throwing gasoline on your fire when you end up getting into a group like this.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, I think it's pretty obvious is anybody in a leadership role, owner, director, our bandwidth is limited on the amount of information we can intake at any time because we're always doing stuff. So when you, just like that, when you start basically spreading out that burden and you start getting information from other directions, and then you spend more time coaching your people on what to do with that information, now you become dangerous in a very good way. Because back to what we're saying, things change in a positive way without you having to be involved because you're following your vision, your mission, your culture, instead of just following one person's directive and one person's orders. And that has always proven to be far more efficient with the company than just one person being the bottleneck.
Yeah. And I can tell you as the owner, there's a bit of ego and pride when I'm the bottleneck. I'm not going to lie. Like it's, oh, they have to come ask me for permission. I have to wave my scepter and give them approval of like yes or no. And there's a little bit of as a leader, you're like, it feels good to be like, they need me. Like, and it feels good to be like, oh, well, they need my input and I get to make these decisions. And there's a little bit of ego that's there. And, but when you start expanding your team and you start delegating, like we're talking about, and then you start bringing them in on the mastermind groups that you're part of, you widen your bottleneck, and it can be an ego hit for the people at the top. Like you're going to have to like humble yourself a little bit and go, you know what? Maybe I am not good at everything. Maybe I am not as good as I think that I am.
Yep. Your biggest limiting factor in your company is yourself, and that has always been a fact.
It's always the case, man. Yeah. And then when you finally see it, you're like, dang it.
Yeah. I understand fully. I'm very fortunate enough to have great people surrounding me that have coached me through the years and still to this day have great people. And that has always been the return of anytime I run into a problem, what caused that problem? It's probably something I did. And it was something that I did. It sucks to say, but it is. And so fixing that, recognizing that, and having people to help build you accountable is important.
And I think having humility as a leader is a great core value to have in your business. We're talking about like company culture, and when you can clearly define your company culture and you say, you know what, no, we're going to be humble and we're going to work together. There's always improvement, and that's one of our core values. Is there's always a better way? Is how we say it. There's always a better way, and it's like we're always working together, and we have like a whole subtext underneath of that. But it talks about humility, and we're going coachable. We're all trainable. No matter where you're at, nobody knows it all. There's always a better way. We're always making improvements. But yeah, having a company culture piece that is about that humility, man, humility and pride and ego will stop things cold in their tracks, man. And you might have a really good thing going, but then if pride creeps in, it can really mess you up. I've seen it in my own life, and I've seen it in other people's lives as well.
It's a quick way to get rid of good people in your organization too. I mean, talking about a culture killer. I mean, yeah, you can bring, you hire one bad hire, and we always, in PB, we talk about the cost of a bad hire. We've got another great coach that talks about that, but ever really talked about the cost of being a bad leader? I promise you, it's far more than the cost of a bad hire. So being a bad leader can cost you so much more money.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think one of my worst hires, and I won't say his name. We'll just pretend that it's Johnny, and so my worst hire ever in my life was a guy named Johnny. And I knew Johnny. Johnny was working for my competition. Johnny and I had met out in the field a few times. Johnny and I had some beers a few times. Like, we hung out, we were friends. And so we had built somewhat of a relationship. And at one point, Johnny was like, I'm not really happy where I'm at. I heard you're hiring. And I was like, oh, I am hiring. And he's like, yeah, man, I think I want to make a change. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Right. So I bypassed all of my hiring processes. I know. Right. I got this. I know this guy. I don't need other people to vet him. I don't need to run him through my AVA assessments. I don't need to run him through my RSTMM processes. I don't need to work on my recruitment normal process. I know this guy. I know Johnny. Johnny's great. So I just offered him a job, brought him on, and hey guys, this is Johnny, and my lead inspector at the time was, my lead guy was like, hey, what happened there? I was like, no, I know this guy. He's so good. I've known him for a few years, and on and on and on and on. And so I thought, I knew this guy, right? So he comes on board, and right away there's some minor red flags, but I overlooked them, right? Because I know, right? I'm the boss. I know. And sure enough, the guy ends up being a full-fledged alcoholic. He's about 6 weeks into the job, and clients on site had locked themselves into one of the bedrooms, called me into the office, and is like, your guy is super drunk and is super aggressive and causing huge problems out here. And I had nearly a lawsuit situation scale up really quickly, and I had to fire him immediately. And it was absolute nightmare of reputation damage. You talk about a bad hire, reputation damage. Well, that my reputation could have been, Matt hires alcoholics who are angry and abusive and start breaking stuff. Right? That is not the reputation that I want to have. And so I started going through all the costs of a bad hire when I did that process, like we do in PEB, and going through the entire process. And the whole time, all I can think about is Johnny, and I'm thinking about Johnny. Johnny's like, what got us there? My pride, my ego. I know it all. I know what I'm doing. And I realized, man, my pride and my ego cost us a lot of problems. And it was a very humbling moment for me, for sure. And our entire team, we sat down, we dissected it. I dissected every employee after that guy left. Hey guys, where did we go wrong? And I owned everything I did wrong. And I apologized to every single one of them. And I just ate crow in front of all of them. And I just said, guys, I screwed up, and we can't do that again. And so, I don't know, man, being humbled really builds teamwork, really builds culture, and really helps. And pride, man, I think the Bible says pride comes before a fall. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
That's exactly right. You're right. It's not even pride. Sometimes it's trying to hope for the best of somebody, right? And you can't change that individual. So that's why it's always just like systems and processes, trusting and having people in there to protect that and protect that culture and build those systems will always be far more effective in your personal opinion. Unfortunately,
100%, man. But I think one of the qualities of a good leader is we're optimistic. We see a brighter future tomorrow. That's a good leader, is going to have that mindset. And so we'll take a bad employee or bad hire, and we'll be like, no, I can change him. I can fix him,
It's a bad girlfriend, it's a bad boyfriend, right?
Yeah. It's like, I found, it's like, she's so hot, but she's so, she's mentally unstable. I can fix her. right?
Was
You know,
that crazy? That what was it? That
the
crazy?
hot crazy matrix.
Yeah, high crazy. Yeah,
That
yeah.
thing is
Not a
brilliant.
unicorn.
Yeah, he's like, oh, you found yourself a unicorn. Trap
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
keep it.
yeah,
We need to
yeah.
run tests.
Yes, yes. That's funny. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so it's
think
the same thing with employees, man. There's probably a hot crazy matrix for employees, or not hot, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, yeah,
uh, yeah, there's like
yeah. I
a
know what you're
talent
saying.
crazy matrix.
I like
Yeah,
that. Talent
there's
crazy
probably a
matrix.
talent
That's
crazy
actually a
one.
good one. Yeah, no,
You know what? I think I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna make a talent crazy matrix and do a rip off of that.
dude,
And that would be really funny video.
that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Yeah. I think any business, anybody, any not even business owners, leaderships too. I mean, we've all done it. We've all been there. We've all seen it. We've made that mistake before, probably multiple times in different ways. It's
Yep.
just, you got to get over the pride. And we've fallen down that hole before. Everybody has. But again, that's the
Yep.
nice thing about being in the group. You get to hear those stories. You talk about that stuff, and it reminds you of the red flags before they happen.
Absolutely. Which is why having a great process for hiring really helps, and then stick to it.
Yep.
Having great processes for your company culture and stick to it. Great processes for your sales process and stick to it. And it's I don't know, as a leader, sometimes you want to rules for thee, but not for me. And again, that's pride and ego, and that stuff gets in the way. And it's like, no, you guys have to follow the rules. I don't have to follow the rules. And it's like, no, you do. You have to follow them too.
Yeah. And transparency is huge. I mean, I'm really, really fortunate with like my growth team right now. I've got a lot of experienced individuals who are really intelligent and awesome. It's taught me a lot about not just listening, but understanding, when somebody comes to you with a concern or they talk to you and you approach it from a truly from your heartfelt, how can I support you, instead of
Ooh,
how
that's
can
good.
I tell you what to do? It it builds trust with your people, and it's trust that you want, and it's not false trust, because if you live it and you talk it and you really speed of the leader, speed of the pack. That doesn't necessarily mean going fast, and it doesn't necessarily even mean leading by example. It just means doing what you say you're going to do. So
Yeah.
being able to have somebody and have a team of really good experienced people, and same on my service team, I've been very blessed with some amazing people on my team. All of them are great, and all of them in their individual ways, but to be able to support instead of and lead from that aspect has been, in our case, over these last several months, just amazing for our growth. It's been amazing for our organization, and it's setting the foundation for an expectation that's going to be very hard to change. And that's what we want. That's what we need to grow. So, it just, man, I think, yeah, just watching out for that pride, right? Because as you start to get successful, what happens? Well, I've done this before. I've done this. Well, no, you
Yeah.
stop. There's some great people in IB and people in home inspector and companies that own massive companies in different states, that they're the most humble people you'll ever meet. And then when you meet them, you're like, that's why they're so successful. It's because people want to work with them.
Yeah, absolutely. People want to work. Well, yeah, that's one of our core values in my business. It's written on the wall. People want to work with happy people.
Yep.
And
That's
and
exactly
be
right.
happy and be humble, right? And that's one of our things is that people do. They want to work with happy people. So be happy, be humble, and it's true. IEB is Inspection Empire Builder. It's the sister to PEB, which is Pest Empire Builder. And so, knowing that like we're building it's a similar culture, it's a similar mastermind, but of course there's the differences of the industries that we're in. But yeah, seeing some of these companies that have 300 home inspectors across like 18 different states or whatever it might be, and you're like, man, these guys have some of the largest inspection companies in the history of the planet, and they're inside of these groups. The same thing with Pest Empire Builder. Some of the largest companies in the history of the planet are part of this community, and you start to realize like, wow, these guys are really big, but they're not sitting there all like high and mighty. I can think of one couple inside of IEB that runs one of the largest home inspection companies out there, and you'll see them in jeans and t-shirt and tennis shoes, and just normal, casual, humble people, and just an amazing people that are phenomenal leaders. And they don't act all high and mighty. They're humble, and they just keep their head down and keep working. Normally, I don't know. I think that humility is really attractive.
Yeah, it's a good quality for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some other company culture values that you guys hold that you think are also really important?
Individual growth, like individual
Ooh.
growth for people wanting to grow themselves, be better. I've got a few people off the top of my head I could think of. One of which actually, when I think about my team leader from a service standpoint, you know, one of the best qualities about them and what's gotten them to where they are is the fact that each one of them in their own way is growing. They're doing something outside, whether it be their physical health, mental health, financial health, whatever that is. They're going beyond their comfort zone to purposely put them in an uncomfortable but respectful situation to grow themselves as individuals, which is setting the foundation for the future within our organization. And even if it's, I always say this, even if it's not within our organization, good for you, because I want you to be able to walk away, go do something on your own, take that experience you've done with us and live a happy life. Hopefully we have the foundation for that, but everybody's different. I can't make an organization that's going to fit everybody. Not going to happen. I know that. I'm realistic with that. But at the same time, take what you did from us with us and take something with you that's going to make your life better going forward. And I think that that part of our culture and what we have within our values is what makes us different from, the Terminexes and the bigger companies of the world. It's that because when you get to an organization, it's very hard to make that part of your culture later on. But if you make that part of your culture now and build your company around it, and you start having regional managers and you start having all these different organizational positions, and that is your culture, all of a sudden you start creating an organization that grows itself with people who are growing themselves.
Wow. That is incredible. I love that. And so, yeah, as you're building people individually, they're turning around and they're going to build the environment around them, and which includes your business. And I love that your mentality is, I'm going to build you as an individual, whether you're here or not, whether you stay with this business for the rest of your life, or this is just a season. Maybe you're here for a few years. Maybe you're here for a long time, but the fact that you're like, I'm going to build you as an individual. And it makes, when you build your employees up as individuals, it makes them better fathers and mothers, makes them better husbands and wives. It makes them better partners outside of work. And it makes them just better at everything that they do. And if you're winning in all areas of life, man, it just feels good. It just feels good to be winning everywhere. And I love that you are pouring into people and encouraging that growth. I mean, that's really cool. I love that.
Yeah, it's a huge part. And not only that, they help you. When you start pouring into people and you start doing that and you go through a tough time or you're working on something and you need that support, you've got a whole bunch of people that will hold you accountable. And I always say, I say this, I say to my people, hold me accountable the way I hold you accountable. That's the expectation. I'm going to do it nice. I'm going to be polite. But at the same time, if I see something, I'm going to say, do better. And I expect you to do the same to me. If I say I'm going to do something, hey, do better. You're right. And we can be respectful and give that type of feedback without being aggressive. And we can have that type of culture. It was funny. One thing that came up in the last week or so was talk about how my people are so loyal, and they talk about where does that loyalty come from? One, it takes time. It definitely does. But the other reason is because of what we just talked about, is being able to hold each other accountable, but also at the same time being invested in what are you doing to make yourself more better at what you do. I don't need to know. I only want to know what you're willing to share. And at one time, at the same time, from a professional standpoint, but at the same time, you spend half of your life with me. So let's make that a positive part of your life. Why would you want that to be a negative thing? And that's where a lot of that loyalty comes from.
Absolutely. I have a personal goal that the people that work for me, that their significant others love that these people work for me. So, because if they're having a great day at work, they come home in a much better attitude. If they're having a bad day at work, sometimes they're not going to vent at work. They're going to walk in the front door and the husband or the wife is going to say, how was work today, babe? Oh my God. Matt did this and this again. I can't believe this guy. Oh, he's such a this and such a that, or whatever. Danny did this, or, oh man, I just wish they would fix this thing. It takes so much time, but they make me do it the hard way. And it's a much easier way to do it. Like going back to our previous conversation, and if they're coming home and complaining about work, guess who? The people who carry that burden are the spouses. I want my people to come home and walk in the front door and just be like, how was work? I had a great day. I crushed it, had this and this went really well. And yeah, maybe there was this little bump, but it wasn't a systems and process thing. It wasn't an ownership thing or a leadership thing or a management thing. It was just the reality of the day. Like I had to get in this crawl space that was so freaking nasty, right? Like it's like you wouldn't believe the literal like shit puddle I had to crawl through underneath of this crawl space. Like there is those moments where it's like that's just part of the job thing. They can't control that, but I want like people to cut off work and go home and be like, I had a great day at work. That's awesome, babe. And then he can focus or she can focus on their family and focus on their partner and focus on their kids. And it's, so as a leader, I think that's a fantastic goal for every one of us to have is the people that are under us are coming home and they're happy and their partners and spouses at home are excited or happy that they're working here. We do an annual thing every Christmas with all of the employees and their spouses and their kids, like bring a whole family and we'll go rent out a whole room in a restaurant and do a big old end of year celebration. And we talk about, what we did and the mile markers, how far we grew and all the different things that we've done, accomplished. And in that every single year, I say, hey, this is my personal goal. It's like for those of you that have a person that works here, my goal is that you're happy that they work here. And I give them all permission as give you permission. And like, I want to know if things aren't going well, like this is my goal. And so I tell them all that at these meetings and throughout every year I say that. And every year I have so many partners come up, so many like spouses that'll come up to me and be like, this is the best job they've ever had. And we're really happy that they're working here. And it's like, that's something that like, when you put that out there, this is what I'm looking for. I mean, I don't know, man. It's just, you work really hard at it.
Yeah. And it also creates another level of stability in your culture because let's face it, like right now, with us, we're going through a lot of changes, right? There's always going to be changes and growth with a growing organization. Doesn't matter what level you're at, there's going to be change. And people are resistant to change a lot of the time. And, I have an individual who's, I've always treated them I always treat my people with respect. I'm always there to support. Someone's like, man, this really ticked me off. And they're like, wait a minute, Steve loves you. He's always been there to support you. And they're telling, this is coming from my employee telling me the story. And they're like, and it made me sit back and think about it. Like maybe I was overreacting. It's like, well, yeah, because let's talk about it. But it created that conversation for at least for us to work through it and get taken care of. And it wasn't a big deal at the end of the day. And that was because of their home life reminding them that, hey, this isn't a bad thing. Let's talk about it. This isn't the normal, so that does create a different level of stability within your organization that you really don't have control over, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, and it also creates an environment inside the workplace because everybody knows that this is the goal. So then what happens is there's an employee that's maybe unhappy with a certain thing, and then might complain to another employee about it. And that employee goes, hey, go talk to Steven. Like we know, like he always says this. Go talk to Matt. He always says this. He says like, yeah, that he wants us to be happy and he wants us to be smooth and friction free. He always talks about it. Maybe he just doesn't know. I don't know. Hey, how could he not know? Because blah, 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 blah. He has to know, blah, 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 and like, so it creates an environment in the company where other people are holding him accountable. Go talk to the boss. Let's see what he says. And then you go talk, how many times, I'm not sure about you, but how many times have you been in a position an employee comes up or a team member comes up and says, hey man, this is really frustrating to me. And I've been like, oh my God, I didn't even realize that was happening, and we can fix that. Let's fix that right now.
Right now. Let's jump on the
Holy cow.
What else do you need? Yeah. That's my
yeah, let's fix it now.
That a lot.
Yeah. You're like, oh my God, I didn't even see it that way. Thank you. Thank you for showing me. I would have had no idea, so creating that feedback loop and I think too, like people don't want to feel like a number. They don't want to feel like a replaceable cog in the machine. They want to feel like a contributing member and that they have value in the community of your workplace, man. And by opening that door of, like you're saying, company culture, how do you create that, man? Like, how do you create a place where people feel like they're a valuable team member, not just a cog in the machine? Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, absolutely. One, everything that we've been talking about. I mean, one thing that I've consistently found to be supportive is that optimistic mentality, but
Yeah.
truly working hard. And this is where it's helped me personally, because it's helped me in my relationship and my life for all these years, is really truly listening to understand, not just
Mm.
listening to respond. And that comes up in individual relationship conversation all the time. But when you talk about employees, to when you're in the thick of it and you're looking at numbers and you're going through reports and you're planning and you're doing all this stuff, to have an employee say, "Hey, I need a minute," and you're like, "Yeah, what's going on?" And to be able to stop, slow down, and truly listen to what they have to say, and then truly give them the support they need in that moment, creates a level of respect and culture that you cannot make with a system or a process. You just can't. You can't. It can't happen. You have to be able to do that. And then when they say you see you acting like that, and they run into an issue, you can go, "Well, remember when you and I had this conversation? How did that
Yeah.
go?" "Well, we went through. Okay, well, do that to the next person too. You're having this frustrating issue with a
Yeah.
technician who's not doing X, Y, Z. Hey, you may not know what they're going through at home. Support them. Don't judge
Yep.
them. Support them." And then you start to do that. And then what they see is they see, "Oh, wait a minute. What could have been a bad situation wasn't. And we just made that into a good situation." They're going to go to the next person and they're going to say, "Hey, wait a minute. Before you get angry and judge them, what's really going on here?" And
Yeah.
so creating that culture starts definitely with a personal touch. Everything you talked about, spending time, going out, inviting families, getting involved. But really, for me, it's being a support cog in this system instead of a director telling people what to do. Yes, we still have to give direction. That's our job. But it's more of a keeping the ship pointing in the right direction, why the team is raising the sails. They're driving, they're moving, they're doing all the other work that has to happen to make this ship move. You're just making sure it's pointed in the right direction.
Yeah. And I think helping people understand, one of the phrases I'll use is, I care more about you than what you do.
Yeah,
Like, I care more
absolutely.
about you than what you do. And it's like, yeah, you have a job to do and a task to do, but I care more about you as a human being. And so I think when you find conflict, approach it with curiosity is there where it's like something's not right. It's so easy to go, well, I see these 4 data points. And so these 4 data points means that you must be doing X, Y, and Z wrong. And if you don't explore with curiosity, you're going to miss. There's 4 more data points over here that create an entirely different picture and an entirely different scenario. And and if you take your 4 data points and just run with it and don't pause and have that moment, like you said, what's going on, that investigation, that curiosity, you might find other points of data and you're like, oh man, if I'd approached it the way I thought I should approach it, I would have really damaged this relationship. And
Yeah.
and that, yet, oh my gosh, there's this other side that I had no idea what's going on, and well, like yesterday, like now I tell stories all the time, but yesterday this happened to me. One of my really good friends just got diagnosed with stage 4 terminal cancer. He's 38 years old. He's got a wife and 2 little kids, and it's very aggressive. There's some experimental stuff they're going to try, but I mean, it's really, really slim, And so yesterday I was off my game. I found myself actually crying a few times in the middle of the day, just sad for what this guy's going through and everything. And I know that I wasn't my best self in a few environments yesterday, and it had nothing to do with anything else going on in the environment I was in. It had 100% to do with me grieving and mourning what this diagnosis that came in from right. But if somebody else could have looked at me that day yesterday and my behavior, they could have been like, God, he was kind of distant. He was kind of a jerk. He kind of ignored me. Like, why was Matt being an a-hole today? Like, I'm not being an a-hole. I'm just like, my brain wave is consumed with something entirely different. You can have somebody on your team that have something going on in their personal life that's shaking them to their core, and you just have no idea. And it's like, well, I have these 4 data points. I'm the boss. I must be right. And it's like, nope, buddy. There's a whole lot of other stuff going on here. That taking the moment to pause and be curious, man, like you're saying, that is such a good thing to do with people.
Yeah. Funny, it reminds me of a show I love. I don't know if you've ever seen Ted Lasso. Be
I
curious.
love that show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm watching it right now with my wife, actually. You're absolutely right. And not only that, you talk about culture with your people, just like what you were saying, being in the wrong situation, having that rapport and knowing that it's a safe place for your team to call you out and call you up and say, "Hey, you all right? You seem awful. You're not as happy as you used to be." My team does that. And when they do that, for me, that's a sign that I have my blinders on and I'm focusing too much on what's not important, you know?
Yeah.
And when I'm saying what's not important, I'm not saying it's not important, but it's not what's most important. King Solomon, this time will pass, right?
Hmm.
Doesn't matter if it's good or if it's bad. This time will pass. It'll be
Yeah.
good, it'll pass, and it'll be bad. If it's bad, it'll pass and it'll be good. So just
Yeah.
understanding that, listen, it's gonna happen, it's gonna pass. So focus on what's going to drive you to the next position of where you need to be. And the majority of the time, it's going to be your people. It's going to be your people that are going to get you there.
Yeah. Man, this has been such a great conversation on culture. I mean, I've really enjoyed this. This has been really good. I know that there are people listening right now and they're going to want to ask some questions and they want to pick your brain on this stuff. What's the best way for someone to get a hold of you if they want to continue this conversation with you?
Yeah, so the best thing is the best way to reach out to me is Steven at pestempirebuilder.com. So that's Steven, Steven at pestempirebuilder.com. You can drop me an email anytime. We're also on the Facebook group. I'm one of the moderators on our PEB Facebook group, which anybody can join. And you can join in there, ask questions. You can join in the conversations that we have. We do have monthly. We do an open table webinar where we bring people in, kind of show what that community is, and obviously join the PEB community. Join in with us. I'm one of 4 coaches right now that are involved in it heavily, and everybody in that group is incredibly talented. And we have a lot of amazing people that come in on a weekly basis and tell their stories, which just allows everybody to stay focused, redirect, and build organizations for success.
Well, Steven, it's been great having you on the show. I look forward to seeing you around more in the community, and I imagine at some point you'll be back on the podcast again. Thank you for being here, man, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Well, thanks for having me, Matt. You too.